When we are living in an environment which is so uncertain, when we're living in a world which is flat, borderless, competitive, how does one ensure success? The fact of the matter is nobody can guarantee success. We can only be ready for things to come in. Now this is where a leader takes a challenge. A leader becomes different from ordinary people like us. When a leader faces a situation, it is not about the environment that the person is living. That's the reality. You can't do nothing about it. But in the environment, what do I pick up? What cues do I know? What are the levers that I need to control so that the environment actually moves the way I want it to move? And as we know that as a leader, we set benchmarks. As a leader, we set standards. As a leader, we actually chart new territories. We form new ways of doing things. And therefore, uncertainty is actually fodder for leaders. Ordinary things, ordinary people, ordinary situations, anybody can do. The question is, in this kind of situation, where we know that every quarter is going to be different, and I want result every quarter, how do I ensure that I get the results that I want? One may actually ask a question that in a situation where every quarter is going to be different, or at least something or the other will happen in every quarter. If it's not the business, it is international trade situation that might change. It's a natural calamity that change the market. It could be a religious situation which can change the market. It could be festivals which can change the market, right? It could be some other celebrations which can actually simply change the sentiments of people, right? Or it could simply be that there is a change of government in the country, which simply means that one has to be ready to face changes and ensure that whatever plans that I've developed, I do get to achieve what I had thought of. Which simply means that while we will draw our plans, while we will work to a plan, we should be equally ready to make a mid-course correction. We should be flexible enough, pliable enough to ensure that my plans, my overall plan doesn't get disturbed, even if some of the elements get disturbed because of the changing environment. Which means that while I develop a plan for whatever long period that I think of, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 18 months, whatever we think we define as a long term. In fact, it's very interesting that the whole definition of long term has shortened. It's no more taken as a long term. What used to be a 20-year plan is become a 20-year vision. What used to be a 5-year plan is again now seen as something which has to be shortened to 3 years. Because the environment is changing so fast, one is very difficult to visualize what would happen in the next 3 years. Which means, once I've developed a plan, how do I know that I will stick to it? Number one. Let's also take example of the new age companies which are coming in, and particularly in terms of startups. As long as the company is set, you are already a settled company, you're a large corporation, you have set processes, you have market shares which you have been defending for quite some time. You still have a path which is known comparatively. But those who want to do something new, take the example of startups, take the example of companies which are bringing new products on a regular basis. These companies face a different challenge. It's almost certain that in case of new startups, your plan changes every 3 months. Your business model may change, your strategies may change. That simply means that I need to be very nimble-footed. Which the plans that we developed before we started the business, by the time we hit the road, things have changed. All my assumptions on which my plan was based, that might have changed. Which means that once I've taken a decision to do something, it is not necessary that the same thing will happen again. And therefore, we need to think of planning and decision as intertwined. Planning and decision making as two sides of the same coin. They actually go together. Let me illustrate this point a little bit. One decides to make a plan and then makes a plans to decide something. And the end of it, the plan is to be implemented is also a decision. So beginning of a plan, end of the plan, and in between there are a lot of decisions to be made. One way to look at a plan is it's a combination of different decisions that one as a manager has made, and therefore it comes to become a composite of all the decisions, becomes a plan. Now, which means that if that plan was static, in the sense that markets were static, environment was static, environment was not changing that fast, that I could have stuck to that plan, and therefore Once I've made a decision, I will not change that decision because that decision remains valid even in the future. But with the kind of condition that we are living in, that's not true. A lot of decisions that we make in building the plan and then implementing the plan, those decisions start to become irrelevant many times. And hence, we can't think of planning a decision like this. We have to think of planning a decision like this. Planning a decision making, planning decision making. And this I'm saying when you are actually drawing the plan. When it comes to implementation of the plan, it becomes much more realistic, because when I take the plan to the marketplace and some reaction of my competition happens which I had not predicted, I need to change either my plan, or the plan remaining the same, I may have to change some of the decisions which I had made. And therefore, we should think of planning and decision making as two processes which are concurrent. As a definition, yes, they might be different. Right? As a definition, you say planning is a process actually drawing out, charting out a path, put different assumptions in place, and say this is how I'm going to achieve this particular objective. As a process of decision making says, you set a problem, you identify a problem, find alternatives, do analysis of the environment, evaluate those alternatives, and then come to a decision that you want to take, and revisit that decision depending upon how as we progress along. So if we go by the definition of the two, and the two processes, they are slightly different but also very simple, very, very related. And therefore, what I'm going to talk about is that planning and decision making as not two phenomena, but two things which actually go concurrent. And effectiveness of a manager is how we can actually bring these two together. How do I make my plan or planning process as flexible as also my decision making as flexible to suit the environment. So from here onwards, what we'll get into is what are the ways that we can actually make this thing effective. The fact is, it's not about taking a decision today. While we take a decision today, this decision will lead to results tomorrow. So as a leader, therefore, when I look in future, I'm taking a decision today, but I will never ever forget what is it going to happen in the next few years. That is that's what my timeline is. Or essentially saying that today's decision is in line with what will happen at the time of my final decision or final destination that I have got. Or what plans we develop today is not just, it has to build into the plan that I have a grand plan which will take me to a particular objective. As therefore, leadership, how do we say what is leadership? It's just not about saying that I want to be there. It's about also saying, laying out a path, laying out the way of working that path, and not necessarily just laying out, because the path that you are laying out is not for yourself only. It is for the whole team which is going to come along with us. I mean, a leader is not a leader unless they are followers of that particular person. Therefore, there are people who are going to work with the particular leader. There are people who are going to work with the leader to cherish or to realize the dream or the vision that the leader has put in front of them. Therefore, the whole planning and decision-making process also has to consider that it's not me, but whole my team, people working with us, whole organization has to be in line with that. Now, this would seem a very simple effort when there are only two people. There are small firms, two people, startups. It becomes easy because you are meeting each other with almost every day. You are sitting with each other. You share a lot of things. But when it comes to a large corporation that somebody is going to lead, or even a large team that somebody is going to lead, until we have made sure that everybody is in line with my planning process and the decision-making process, there would be inconsistencies in the performance that we desire. And therefore, it's not just about planning or decision-making, it's also about how do you create an organization which has a culture of planning and culture of making decisions which are relevant to that particular company or that particular situation.